Point number B, he says, so also, quoting Yeshua, so also when you see these things, know that it is near at the doors. What's the it? Is he talking about his return? Is he talking about the day of the Lord? Is he talking about the rapture? Is he talking about the establishment of the second coming? I believe he's generally speaking about his return. That, so you know that it is near. That's the immediate the thing that the topic, the immediate antecedent, the immediate. I'm losing English words here. That's what happens when you end up living in a country that English isn't their primary language, and you're trying to navigate through it. You don't speak English as much as you should. The immediate preceding event, but I lost the word I was looking for. So in this chapter, we're talking about. He's already telling disciples, then you will see the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds, the sign of the Son of Man coming, right? Remember, let me just show it to you in Matthew here. Earlier, in verse 30 and 31, and the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky. So that, I believe, is the immediate event where he says in verse 33, so you too, when you see all these things, recognize that he is near, right at the door. And that is the thing that is going to be happening soon. Know that it is near at the doors. Know that he is near. There, you could translate in verse 33. So that the NSB translates, so you too, when you see these things, recognize that he is near. But if I click on the Z, didn't want to do that. Let's try that again. When I click on give me a moment. There we go. When I click on the little letter Z there and scroll down and look at the notes, literally Z says, or it. It's because the Greek word, the pronoun, could be rendered he by context because we're talking about Yeshua's return, but some translations put he is near. Let me stop doing that. Let's go like that. Some translations put he is near, right at the door, whereas the one that Guzik's using says, know that it is near. So that we had to ask the question, what's the it? I think both translators would agree that the it is he, meaning it is his return. That's what I'm going with as well. Guzik seems to take that position as he says, quote, Jesus assured that when these signs appeared as he foretold, remember what signs? The abomination of desolation, followed by the great tribulation, followed by the signs in the heavens, the exact same things the three things that I just said, if I would not get ahead of myself. Guzik reminds us that when these things happen, his return to the earth would follow. So it's the return of Yeshua that he's focusing on now, which is why we're going to move from this section right into the rapture topic for my next topic when we get to it. Guzik continues, when the fig tree buds, there's an inevitable result. What is it? Summer is near and fruit is coming. So listen up, follow the logic. In the same way, Guzik says, when these signs are seen, stop. Why would you have signs if there was imminency, right? So in the same way, when these signs are seen, the coming of Jesus in glory with this church to this world will inevitably follow. I think really, in all honesty, I'm kind of pushing the straw man theology where I'm talking about the imminency of Christ. In all reality, I believe since Guzik is a pre-tribber, he might have switched over to pre-wrath, or a lot of people are abandoning pre-trib, realizing many of the weaknesses of that position, going over to something closer to either a mid-trib or a pre-wrath, which are very, very similar. But if Guzik is a pre-tribber, like I believe he is, then he does believe in imminency, but he still believes that there will be signs. So what he does is he simply must push the signs prior to the rapture, prior to the 70th week itself even commencing, meaning he takes the signs and takes them outside of the 7th week and puts them in front of the rapture instead of, like I do, putting those signs inside the 70th week. So perhaps that's what he's dealing with. Point I in his notes here, really, he says it was just Daniel. It was just as Daniel prophesied in Daniel 12:11. The end will come 1290 days after the abomination of desolation, which, let me pause for a moment. This is a very good place for us to remind ourselves that Daniel was the original one used by God to really give us a lot of chronology to these end time events, or the whole 70 weeks of Daniel, with this intense zoom in on the final 70th week, because within that 70th week, Daniel gives us the breakdown of 3.5 years and 3.5 years, or 1260 days. And then to which we have 1290 days, it's 1290 days. And then there's some more information that's given in Daniel chapter 12, 1300 and something odd days. Let me see if I have it in one of my charts. I might not. If I don't have it here, we'll get to it a different day. But for the sake of reference, when we look at the 70th week using this chart, we can see that this 70th week, this last 7 years of humanity's time here on planet Earth for this age to come to an end, is divided neatly between 3.5 and 3.5 years. And so the abomination of desolation takes place right smack dab in the middle between number 4 and number 5 seals, according to this chart. We don't know if it's going to lay out exactly the way it is between 1 and 7. Will it be exactly 3.5 years when we get to 4? Will it be number 4 when we get to 3.5 years? I don't know exactly about that, but according to the sequence of the way Daniel described things, leading into Yeshua's description in Matthew, leading into Paul's description in the Thessalonian letters, leading into John's description in the book of Revelation, where we get the seals themselves. Remember, Daniel didn't describe seals. Jesus didn't use the word seals in Matthew, and Paul didn't use the word seals in the Thessalonian letters. But when we get to John's Revelation, we end up with the seals giving us more chronology, because seals are sequential, 1 through 7, right? They're numbered. We don't expect them to appear out of order. But the point I'm trying to make for this part of my teaching is that if we put the 6th seal, which is the cosmic disturbance, the signs in heaven, if we move that all the way to the beginning of the 70th week, near what looks like seal number 1 right now on this chart, we push it all the way out there because it must precede the second returning of Christ, meaning the rapture, meaning because many pre-tribbers believe that Christians will not go through the 7-year tribulation. That's what they call it, the so-called 7-year tribulation. I do not hold to that perspective, but many people do. If that's the case, then the signs must precede either the rapture, or they must precede the second return, the second coming, which puts the signs either at the very beginning of the 70th week, or they're pushed all the way to the far right, if not the far left. One of the two. Because otherwise, why would they precede? So going back to what Yeshua and Guzik are talking about, this was already prophesied in Daniel that we would at least see a 1290-day time frame after the abomination of desolation. So when we go back to this chart here, we can see that if the abomination of desolation takes place right in the middle between seal 4 and 5 or thereabouts, within the 1260 days is at the far right. Make sense? It's after the abomination of desolation, which is definitely in the midpoint. No question about that. Even the pre-tribbers agree that the abomination of desolation is in the middle of the 7-year tribulation from their perspective. So they just don't believe that Christians will be around to witness that event, because they will have already been raptured by Yeshua at the far left of the chart that you're looking at right now, which I don't hold to. I think we'll still be here. We believers will be here we'll be here 1 through 6 seals. We'll be here through all of that. In other words, we will be part of the Great Tribulation as well. But we will be raptured sometime around between the 6th and the 7th, because that's about where the rapture should take place. It must take place prior to the day of the Lord, and therefore God must rescue us from the day of the Lord's punishment, because that's a not just a punishment, it's a judgment, and we're not supposed to partake in that. We've been rescued from the judgment of God by the blood of Messiah. We've been exempted from the judgment, the final judgment, and the judgment is going to be poured out against wicked humanity. So going back to Guzik, he says the end will come 1290 days. The end of what? The end of this age, right? The end of humanity's final desperate attempt to overthrow God, his Messiah, his gospel truths, any semblance of being accountable to this holy God. Remember, they're going to be embracing the Antichrist as the false god of this age. He will declare himself after the midpoint of the week. He will declare himself as God. Paul's going to go on to tell us that he's going to take a seat in the temple, declaring himself as God, a temple that's not yet built yet, right? He's going to declare himself as God over and against any other religious object of worship that will be in existence at the time. Thus, we believers who will be resisting Antichrist because we know who the true God is, and we know who the true Messiah is, and we embrace the truth of the gospel, we are the ones who will be ripe for the martyrdom that's going to take place in that day as well. Also, the Antichrist is going to have this intense wrath and hatred against Israel like he always has, just like Satan always hates God's people. He hates Christians, yes, but he also hates the Jews. So there will be martyrdom on that end as well. 1290 days signaling the end comes after the abomination, because it continues by saying Jesus assures that the agonies of the great tribulation will not continue indefinitely. They will have an end. So even if the tribulation runs the entire 3.5 years, starting from the midpoint and goes to the end of the age, which I don't think it will, even if that tribulation were to run that distance, it's still not going to be longer than 3.5 years. My understanding is that tribulation is going to be cut short by the signs in the heavens and the rapture of the saints and the pouring out of God's wrath, the day of the Lord commencement. That will cut short the day of the tribulation days, so that they'll end up being not even 3.5 years. They'll end up being maybe, I don't know, Lord willing, Bezat Hashem, as you say in Hebrew, they'll end up being, maybe a mere year, or maybe something to that effect. We can only pray, right? Let's read a few more points in Guzik. He mentions that up to this point, Jesus has given an important outline for end-time events. There will arise catastrophes and persecutions, but those in themselves are not the sign of the end. He continues, there will arise, this is Guzik, there will arise a pivotal sign, the abomination of desolation. That's itself a pivotal sign, even though Yeshua doesn't say this is a sign. I don't recall that he uses the word sign next to the abomination, but he does highlight it. He says, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, and then we've got this insert bracketed, let the reader understand. Well, this is Yeshua's way of saying, when you see this event happening, if you're the ones that are alive during that time, when you see this happening, you need to understand that there is a momentous event that's about to take place. The tribulation is about to commence. So that's why he tells his disciples, those of you in Judea, get out, get up, get out, flee, right? Flee south, etc., etc. So if this took place in 70 AD, partially, then the disciples or the followers of Yeshua that were around in that time fled for their lives from Jerusalem, the destruction of the temple, the siege of Jerusalem, and things like that. There wasn't an Antichrist desecrating the temple in 70 AD, as far as I could understand. There wasn't. That had taken place 200 years earlier with Hanukkah and Antiochus Epiphanes and things like that, which, by the way, at the time of this recording, we're right in the middle of Hanukkah, so that's a good time to get out your history book and read about Antiochus Epiphanes, the forerunner to Antichrist, or go back and listen to my previous shows where we talked about the forerunner, Antichrist, and how he's a forerunner and a shadow of the Antichrist to come in the future. Go back and listen to some of my previous shows. Also, go to my website at tatesatorah.com and notice that right now I am advertising, advertising, I suppose that's the right word, the commentary on Hanukkah that I posted on my own website, which talks about the events surrounding Antiochus Epiphanes and the desecration of the temple, the first abomination of desolation, and the victory won by those Judean what we call rebels, freedom fighters, who resisted the intense Hellenization of Jerusalem and fought back and eventually won by God's grace. Of course, I'm talking about the family of Mattathias Maccabees, right? The Maccabean family, who won that victory by God's help and grace, and the temple was reclaimed, and then they had to rededicate it and purify it and cleanse it so that they could commence sacrifices once more. So we'll see some repeat of that. Will we have another Judas Maccabeus? Not sure exactly, but that would be nice. Eventually, the temple will be desecrated by Antiochus, by the future Antichrist. So there must be a temple. He'll desecrate it again. He'll unleash his intense great tribulation that Yeshua warned his disciples about. And then when that happens, the temple will probably, whatever temple it is, it will probably suffer greatly, perhaps being destroyed again as Antichrist turns on Israel. But all that doesn't matter, because whatever the temple is that we're talking about, Yeshua is going to rebuild another one for his own 1,000-year millennial reign here on earth. It'll be a holy temple. It won't be one that's defiled, that has been previously defiled. And the size, as far as I can understand, if I take Ezekiel's last, say, 10 chapters of his book, literally, then we're talking about a millennial temple that will be, much larger in size than the current one. Even the Temple Mount, it'll swallow up a lot of Jerusalem. All right, that was kind of a little bit of a side trail. Let's continue. Let me see if I can read just this last 3 bullet points here, and then we'll call the study quits and pick this up again next week. Guzik continues by saying that when the abomination of desolation does appear, there are warnings to Israel to do what? To flee after the abomination. Again, signs that are primarily Israel-centric. This could make sense for those Christians who believe that they won't be around during all of this time. They will have already been raptured. That all of this abomination and of a temple and things like that are released for Israel. Okay, I agree with some of that. Yes, a lot of what we're reading about is Israel-centric. Israel is the focal point of a lot of the end-time events. The 70th week of Daniel is Israel-centric. And so Jerusalem will be the epicenter. In fact, according to my understanding, at some point in time, Jerusalem will be occupied by the Antichrist as his headquarters, turning her effectively into Mystery Babylon, turning Jerusalem itself into the harlot, the whore, from which all of these many abominations will be going forth. Not just the abomination where he turns on Jerusalem, but prior to that also will seem to have perhaps even some intense allowable, there's a Temple Mount up there that supposedly we're worshiping God, and yet at the same time, perhaps Israel will be committing all kinds of atrocities, allowing all manner of religions to have access here and there, kind of this multi-religious ecumenical push to allow everybody to have a voice, which of course isn't according to the Bible also. So we'll get to that in time when we start talking about Mystery Babylon. Guzik continues by saying, on the heels of the abomination of desolation, that's the midpoint, comes great tribulation, so chronologically, and then cosmic disturbances. And then finally he says, in culmination, Jesus Christ will return in glory to the earth. And so that's the sequence of events that Guzik shares. And he can share these events even if he is a pre-tribber, because he might believe that Christians will be gone, but that doesn't change the fact that many of these events will play out chronologically the way that they've been described by Yeshua here in Matthew. And so at least he's holding to that perspective, which I appreciate, which is why I'm using his notes here in our commentary. But that'll do it for tonight. We'll pick this up again next week. I don't foresee any breaks on the horizon unless they cut the power out again here where I live. But we'll pick this up again where Yeshua continues to explain to his disciples about the events that are leading up to his second return, and how that we who now live in the days where his second return, his second coming, could be triggered very, very quickly by what I understand to be the signing of the peace treaty with Israel and a prominent leader that eventually will turn out to be the Antichrist. I believe that we could be the generation that sees the return of Jesus, and so for that, I'm living with a great sense of urgency and expectancy and excitement because of the days that we live in. Yet at the same time, there's a lot of suffering right around the corner, a lot of pain and loss of life because of the Great Tribulation that's right around the corner as well. So let's continue to pour into our Master's words here during this study so that we are of those who are of the blessed hope. But that'll do it for Eschatology, a biblical study of end time events.